Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Sunday night story. This week I am covering some little ghostly tales from the Durham area. Some of the stories are a little bit funny and others are based on stories that are quite sad. I do hope you will enjoy it and find it interesting. And I just want to add that I am still suffering quite badly with this cold. So if I sniff a little bit, I do apologise, but I've got such a lot going on at the moment. I am trying to get some of these stories recorded a little bit ahead of time. But before we begin, can I just say, if you do enjoy this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here or haven't already done so, then do please consider subscribing to the channel to help support the content we create. Thank you. It is completely free to subscribe. It doesn't cost you any money, but it really does help to support the channel. And I would just like to add, as I always do now, that I do record these stories live, so I do sometimes make mistakes, which I always try to rectify, so I hope this does not spoil your enjoyment of the video. In 1880, in the area of Toof Hill in Durham, the locals had been reporting regular sightings of a ghost around the hour of midnight, which seemed to happen most nights, and the ghost also seemed to favour the local churchyard for its wanderings. Many said the ghost could be seen wearing what appeared to be a white sheet. Now, I must add here that in many of the stories I have looked at about ghosts in the past, people would often gather in large groups at the location where one had been seen, and this particular ghost seems to have been seen by a huge amount of people. However, not everyone was interested in ghost hunting, and one night the alleged ghost managed to terrify a married couple who were simply walking past the churchyard, and as the ghost came into the street, it came face to face with a brave policeman, and he quickly took out his truncheon and demanded to know what the ghost was doing. At this, the ghost turned and ran off, closely followed by the said brave policeman. They jumped over hedges and ran into people's gardens before the ghost ran out of steam, and the policeman was able to capture him. And it turns out that the so-called ghost was a miner by the name of Thomas Fawcett, who was running round the streets in his nightshirt, and was, no ghostly pun intended, 2 sheets to the wind. He was arrested and fined 7 shillings and 6pence. I bet he never drank too much again or went out in his nightshirt, and I suspect that those who had gathered at the scene must have felt a little silly at believing this ghostly tale. A story appeared in the papers in 1886 discussing the tragic story of Jane Ramshaw of Durham. It seems that she was killed in around 1789. However, despite many people being questioned, the person responsible for her death was never caught, and Jane was said to haunt the area of the Flass Well, which was close to Durham Infirmary. She could also often be seen wandering in the neighbouring gardens and around the area of the Red Hills. And it was said that the areas she was seen were very well used roads in the past, and many a miner had seen Janie as they had taken to calling her. And the Flass Well was also a very popular place, and many people had seen her there when going to fetch water for cooking and cleaning. In later years, it was claimed that a soldier on his deathbed had claimed to be the murderer of Jane Ramshaw. However, it was never proven, and it certainly did not stop Jane from wandering in the area. The paper suggested that the well was now, and this is in 1886, inside someone's garden, and it seems that the sightings of Jane had become less and less. And I have to wonder, if the well was in a garden somewhere, did the owners ever see Jane wandering past? And if they did, it was certainly never reported in the papers. And as a final thought, is the well still there today? If anyone listening thinks they know the answer to this last question, do please let me know in the comments below. In 1883, the newspapers reported the sighting of a ghost at Spennymoor. A group of friends had been heading home after a night out, and all were a little merry and making rather a lot of noise. When they reached the graveyard, one of the boys in the group told the others that they should be quiet, as they did not want to wake the ghosts, an expression that I know better today as "you are making enough racket to wake the dead." Anyway, as soon as the boy had said this, one of the girls glanced towards the graveyard, and thinking she had spotted a ghost, she let out a scream. Her female friends all screamed with her as they spotted the ghost too, and the brave boys with them all jumped over a nearby hedge and started to run away. The whole chaotic scene was only brought to an end when one of the group spotted the fact that the ghost was actually the local vicar walking through the cemetery wearing a long pale coat which was reflected brightly in the moonlight. I bet those brave boys were very embarrassed at the fact they had run away from the so-called ghost, and I bet the girls made fun of them for many months to come. In the 1700s, the village of Sedgefield in Durham was said to be haunted by a man by the name of John Gamage. John had once been the rector of St Edmund's Church. Tenant farmers lived on the land owned by the church, and they would be required to pay what was known as a tithe. And a tithe was not paid frequently. Some were paid yearly, some every 3 years, or even more, and they could only be paid to the rector of the church. However, John had died just before the money was due to be paid, and his wife decided that she still wanted this money. So she did not tell the farmers that he had died. Instead, she preserved his body in salt, and the good farmers duly came and paid their money on Christmas Day. It seems that John was propped up at a table, probably with his back to them, so the farmers could see him, but no one spoke to him, and his wife collected the money at the door. Once all had been collected, John's wife announced that he was dead, and he was later buried. After this, it seems he began to haunt the rectory, and many people claimed to have seen him, with some reports saying the vision of him around the church was quite hideous. In later years, he became known as the Pickled Parson, no doubt due to the preserved in salt story, and when the rectory was burnt down in 1792, it was said that the ghost was never seen again. Now, it's probably worth adding here that some of this story, or legend, whichever way you want to view it, may not be as true as it seems. John had apparently died some 200 miles away from Sedgefield, and although he was the rector there, he also worked in many other areas too, and the fact that he was not always at the rectory in Sedgefield is thought to be a more sensible reason why his wife was still able to collect the tithe money after his death, as the farmers would not have found it unusual for him not to be present when they paid their money. But if that was the true story, then who was the ghost who was known for years as the Pickled Parson? There are many stories from various different locations that discuss the haunting from a grey lady. Grey ladies were certainly a common sight in the past, and some are still seen today, and Durham was no exception to the grey lady ghost. Durham Castle, which stands very close to Durham Cathedral, was said to be haunted by one such grey lady, and this particular grey lady was said to have been the wife of one of the bishops of Durham, and it's said that she met her death by falling from the top of the castle walls. Now, sadly, I have not found a name for the poor lady, so if anyone listening to this knows more about it, then do please let me know in the comments below. The Grey Lady was said to have been seen often on the black staircase in the castle, and many people even today had said they felt her presence in that area. Now, I understand that you can go on a tour of the castle, which includes the black staircase, but I have not heard of anyone seeing the Grey Lady on the tour. The castle, of course, is now part of Durham University, and the Grey Lady is not the only ghost said to be inside its walls. When it first opened in the 1800s, a man by the name of Frederick Copeman was a student there. He was said to be one of the best students of the time. When his exam results were due, he headed out to the board on Palace Green to see if he had passed as he hoped that he had. However, he could not see his name on the list at all, and this greatly upset him. He returned to his rooms and paced the floor in anguish, and a short time later it is claimed that he took his own life. Sadly, it seems had he waited, he would have found that not only had he passed, but that he had also been top of his class. But it was alleged that his name and results had been hidden by another sheet of paper, so he had not seen them. And rumour has it that Frederick can still be heard pacing the floors in his rooms. I wonder if anyone is sharing a room with him today. It is said that if you stand on the bridge in Durham at midnight, you might just hear the sound of the Northumbrian pipes, and the man playing them is said to be Jimmy Allen. Jimmy had been brought to Durham in the 18th century and sentenced to death for horse stealing. It's quite sad to look back to the past and see how a simple crime could result in someone being hanged, but it was believed that this punishment would put others off. Sadly, that never worked, as the list of those hanged for similar crimes is rather long. Jimmy had been kept in the House of Correction, which was situated below the bridge, and it seems he often played his pipes while he was kept there. His death sentence had very much upset him, and although no reason is given, it seems that Jimmy died while still in the House of Correction, just days before a pardon was received that would have commuted his sentence. Now I do wonder if anyone has ever stood on the bridge and heard the sound of pipes being played by poor Jimmy Allen. If you have, do please let me know. In the area of Neville's Cross in Durham stands the monument to the 1346 Battle of Neville's Cross between the Scots and the English. The battle took place on October the 17th, 1346, when the Scottish army of around 12,000, led by King David II, were defeated by the English army of around 7,000, led by Ralph Neville or Lord Neville. The battle itself was part of the 100 Years' War. Many years after the war, a letter appeared in the newspapers in 1863 from a man who had lived there when he was a child, and he had visited the monument as a young boy. He spoke of the days when it was believed that a ghost could be seen at the monument if you followed a certain ritual. He had gone to the monument with a friend at midnight, and they had walked around its base 9 times, repeating the Lord's Prayer, waiting for a sword covered with blood to appear from the top of the monument, and to see the lonely guard pacing around its base. However, they were out of luck and saw nothing. Later, when speaking to a school friend, he had been told that they should have been repeating the Lord's Prayer backwards. It seems, however, that he never went back to try again. The legend did persist, though perhaps in a slightly lesser form, and it was said that if you walked around the monument several times and then listened to the ground around it, you might just hear the sound of the ghostly battle taking place. Now, I never found any real evidence of anyone hearing the sounds, and these days the monument is fenced off, so the chances of walking round it are pretty much impossible. When first built, it was a very impressive tall monument with steps that led to carved figures and a tall pillar in the centre with a further statue on the top depicting Jesus on the cross. Sadly today, with not just age but also apparently 16th century vandalism, the monument is now only a few feet high and mostly just crumbling stones. However, it is a Grade 2 listed monument. There are many more ghostly tales from Durham and the surrounding areas, but I will leave it here for this week and maybe include some more in another video at a later date if anyone would be interested in hearing them. But I do hope that you have found this little collection of ghost stories interesting, and I do agree that a lot are tales of possible ghosts that were proven not to be, but I still hope that you enjoyed hearing some of the strange little tales from the past. And I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again very soon.